We've deployed ESXi, and it's now time to log into our host and use the vSphere client. If you recall, on the console of this host, using the direct console user interface or DCUI, we've already configured a static IP address, which was 192.168.1.11. We should be able to access this ESXi host using that IP address in our web browser. However, I also want you to know that we configured a host name for this host and called it Node 1. It's in the Wired Brain Coffee Company domain, and I want to very quickly show you that we do have a DNS server already configured for the Wired Brain Coffee Company. It is a Windows DNS server. It's running as a virtual machine on an ESXi host in the cluster that I previously installed before creating this video. It is best practices to have DNS in place for any production vSphere infrastructure. It's not a requirement, but it is recommended, and it is a requirement, I would say, in a production environment. So here we have a Windows, actually 2012, very old version of Windows host running with Active Directory and DNS. And you can see I've configured DNS hostname entries for the 4 nodes that will eventually make up the vSphere cluster at the Wired Brain Coffee Company. Node 0, 1, 2, and 3. We also have an IP address here for VMware vCenter, as well as our Active Directory controller, which is doing DNS as well. And then entries for our iSCSI SAN and our NFS NAS for storage. So if we have our DNS server properly configured, we should be able to access this new node that we created using the IP address for node 1, which is 192.168.1.11. Let's give it a try. All right, I've opened up my Firefox web browser, and up here in the address bar, I'll just type in 192.168.1.11 and press enter. It gives us this potential security risk ahead. I'll go ahead and click advanced, scroll down, and click accept the risk and continue. Now we're getting this because the certificate for this host is not trusted by Firefox. That's because the certificate is not valid for this IP address. It's only valid for localhost.local domain, and that's not the host name or the domain that we're using. In fact, over in Chrome, you'll find that you cannot even accept the risk and continue. You simply cannot access the website at all. I'll show you in a future video in the course how to save the certificates locally on your host to prevent these error messages in Firefox and to allow you to access the vSphere web client as well as VMware vCenter over in Chrome. But for now, we're simply going to accept the risk and continue. And that brings us to the web-based client for ESXi. Here we can go ahead and log in as the root user and then use the password that we created when we installed ESXi. I'll click login. And at this point, we're prompted to enroll in the VMware Customer Experience Improvement Program. We'll go ahead and take the default on that. We might as well contribute some information back to VMware on how we use the vSphere web client and any issues that we might have. I'll click OK. And we have successfully logged into our brand new ESXi host that we just recently deployed. Again, notice here that this is build version 7.0. The host name is Node 1, which we configured inside the DCUI. If we scroll on down, you can see the IP address here for this host is 192.168.1.11. DNS servers are configured, default gateway, and more. If we scroll back up, looking at the left-hand side over here, you can see we have 0 virtual machines at this point. We have 0 virtual data stores configured for storage, and we have 2 virtual networks, VM network and the management network with 1 active port. That's our active management network connection, so that we can access this host on the network. From here, we can manage this host and perform configurations as needed. We can perform monitoring as well on CPU, memory, storage, networking, and events. And of course, deploy and create virtual machines. So that's how easy it is to log in to your brand new ESXi host via the vSphere client in your web browser.